Hey, Jack. All right. You got this stuff?
Yeah, all cleaned in oil.
Oh, yeah. Beautiful. Beautiful. Let's get it on.
Who are these guys?
It's my theme music. Every good hero should have some.
Missouri, the one, the only, Heath Green.
Excuse me, can I get a cup of coffee? Black? Can't you see we talking? White?
Hey, it's Thursday. Time for another morning coffee with me. I'm your host, Keith. Happy to be here. Hopefully everybody has had a nice start to their day and has gotten their first 2, 3, 10 cups of Joe this morning. Hopefully today's show, which will be the top 5 stories over the last 5 years of doing Pop Culture Minefield. I thought that doing this today would be kind of interesting. Because it will help to showcase how far things have gone. 5 years ago, everything was different. The MCU was riding high. And I think the aftermath of everything going on at Warner Brothers after Justice League was happening. Things were changing. Walter Hamada was trying to basically get some stuff going, and yeah. Anyway, that's jumping ahead. But before I even come close to doing that, let me just bring in the 2 guys that really help to make every morning that I do this so amazing. My good buddy, Das Wolf and John.
Hello. Yeah,
Hey.
I got a feeling our lists are going to have a lot of the same things on it.
I got a feeling that they probably would. I mean, doing this, it's difficult not to have a repeat of the same thing. I think the only thing that'll be different will be the order. That probably is different. But yeah. Wow. And Martin, the main man himself.
Good morning, everybody. Hello, John. Hello, Keith.
Hello.
Hey,
Well,
hey.
Today I will be on the sides. I will be enjoying your takes and commenting if I am not left speechless.
You know what? Again, it's not that difficult. I mean, a lot of this is stuff that all of us have commented on over the years. Some of us before they became a part of the show, but I think all of us have opinions, and especially seeing how a lot of this stuff. Good morning, Penny, and especially since a lot of this stuff is just pretty much just looking into the past, the recent past for us. I think everybody's going to have an opinion, especially now that we know how everything is worked out. Oh, it's our Muslim uncle.
Yep.
Hail to you. So let me begin with what number 5 is for me. Number 5 is the utter, and I'm just going to go ahead and just mash it all together, but it's the utter and complete destruction of the Star Trek franchise by Paramount and Secret Hideout Productions, aka JJ Light. If not for Andre and Tom at Midnight's Edge, I think a lot of us would still be kind of confused. And I think Kurtzman and his people would have been very effective at gaslighting a lot of fans into silence. What they were able to find and what they ended up reporting and discussing on YouTube, I think how things have progressed since then. A lot of people don't remember that 5 years ago, you still had a court case that we were still having to, everybody was confused as to what was happening with the court case of the gamer whose game had been appropriated by many of the people that were working on Star Trek Discovery, allegedly.
All right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And when you combine everything that Midnight's Edge reported, what you get back is something that is, in my personal opinion, utterly disgusting. Because in all my years of being a Star Trek fan, really a fan of any particular television show, I have never, ever had to really sit there and just think, wow, I wonder if what I'm watching is something that
It's stolen. Oops.
just sort of
Did I say that?
appropriate that from someone else. What happened?
No, nothing.
Oh, okay. So the writing staff of all of the Kurtzman shows have one very, very distinct difference between them and the series known as Star Trek, or at least their writing staff. And that is that, to a person, none of them are authors and screenwriters of that caliber, while there was an author working with them, a Pulitzer Prize winning author, whom, according to that particular author, was a Star Trek fan, which I found dubious after looking at some of his work on Discovery. I gotta say that after a while, I just began to shake my head, you know, and seriously doubt if any of those people were really and truly seriously fans of Star Trek, or if they even considered what Star Trek meant to anyone older than 30. You know, I can definitely say that as far as I was concerned, I am probably part of that first generation of fans who keyed into Star Trek once it hit syndication. You know, unlike Gary, I have no memories of the show during its broadcast. Then again, I was born exactly 1 month to the day it premiered. So I think I was kind of busy.
Yeah.
Doing some other
And
things.
I wasn't around yet, so
But yeah, it's unfortunate that none of these people seem to be interested in the history, both in terms of how the show was made, but also in the history of the characters and the stories. Something that for anything that anyone can say about Rick Berman and his mini me Brandon Braga, which I know that's how I referred to them back in the day. I shouldn't refer to Brandon like that because I think he's tried to put himself on the road.
Hello.
I think it's safe to say that he's just about all the way back with me. I know that there are some people that probably will never forgive Brandon Braga, and I get it. I totally understand. But as far as I'm concerned, he's just about all the way back with me. But I still think that when you are given the opportunity to take something that has existed and has entertained people for decades, if you're not the creator, you're the custodian. And that's at least something that Rick Berman understood. You know, he was not a Star Trek fan before he was brought in to help oversee everything and be Paramount's guy on set. Even though, you know, Gene Roddenberry was given the opportunity to run things, Berman was really the guy who everybody technically had to answer to. And Berman at least had enough respect to try to keep everything kind of about within the vicinity of what Roddenberry would like to do. And so for me, he will always get props for that. Personally, I believe that some of the stuff that he did as far as negotiating with some of the actors, or in this case, the actresses, I thought was not good. It hurt and robbed us of the talents of some of these incredible actors for a season or two, or in certain cases for the rest of the series. But even with all of that, nothing compares to a lot of the things that Alex Kurtzman and his people have said or done since they were given the opportunity to work within the Star Trek IP. What do you think, John?
yeah. I actually didn't think about this when putting together my list because I was focusing on other stuff. But Kurtzman has done. I hope it's not lethal damage, but serious damage to the reputation of Star Trek.
Mm-hmm.
The brand has been, basically until they get somebody else in charge of it, it's a dead brand.
Yep. Well, let me be completely honest. There is a way that I know that people like us, especially, people like me, we look at Kurtzman Trek and we just have to shake our heads, in terms of character development, stories, other things. This isn't even good TV as far as I'm concerned. There have been episodes that have entertained even critics of what they do. But as a whole, this is low quality stuff. Okay. And the saddest part of it is that outside of Kurtzman as the showrunner and all of the writers of all the different shows, they have access to some talent as far as the actors and all the people who create sets, costumes, makeup, and the visual effects and music. That's quality stuff.
Yeah.
But as far as I'm concerned, the writers' rooms for all of those shows suck. They do. They're bad.
Yeah.
They're not the worst, but they're bad. And the talent that they have does not compare to the talent that Gene Roddenberry and Dorothy Fontana and Gene L. Kuhn and the rest of the writers had for Star Trek itself.
Oh yeah.
You know, it's. I often tell people, you can go ahead and Google, go to Wikipedia, and look up all of the writers for Star Trek. Gene Roddenberry is as the showrunner. Dorothy Fontana, Gene L. Kuhn. Look at all the writers they had, and look at them individually. Go to their own Wikipedia pages and look at all of their work, both in terms of published materials, but also what they were given as far in terms of awards and accolades, not just for Star Trek, but for their entire careers. It was a murderer's row of some of the best writers you could get. Okay? And for those that never bothered reading the book Inside Star Trek, you need to understand that a lot of what Kurtzman and his people try to put out there about what Gene Roddenberry had in making light of what the show looked like, need to understand that what we saw in that show was not what the show was originally meant to look like. Okay? The actual series, Star Trek, if it had been given the budget rather than next to no budget because of Mission Impossible, if they had been the ones to have been given the budget, they were aiming for a show that would look closer to how a lot of things were done for the movie Forbidden Planet. So many of the types of things that you saw in even shows like The Orville or even Babylon 5, some of the shots they had, matte paintings, other things, they were planning on doing Star Trek, were just some of the few pieces they could afford for that show. There was supposed to be a lot more than what we just saw, but they had very few things because they had really no budget. So they did the best they could, and they poured all of their energy into the scripts, which, when you think about it, is probably the smartest thing to do when you have next to no budget.
Yep.
You can't complain. So, anyway, let me wrap this portion of it up by just saying this. If you truly want to understand how things truly got twisted, check out our friends at Midnight's Edge. Check out their stories concerning Star Trek, or in this case, Kurtzman Trek. They were able to get interviews and bring in people like Robert Meyer Burnett and others, and were able to shed a lot of light on what happened and why all of this stuff from Kurtzman is just bad stuff. Ironically, it was Netflix who really did the most damage, in my opinion, in being able to show people that Kurtzman Trek sucks.
Yeah.
Because they were able to show that nobody was really watching at all their show. So.
Well, there is a bright point in the whole Kurtzman episode saga, and that's Terry Metalis.
Terry Metalis, yes. And the unfortunate thing is, I don't think they're ever going to let him be in charge. I'll tell you that much. If they were to announce tomorrow that Alex Kurtzman was going to go off and do something else and concentrate on something else, and that Akiva Goldsman decided to just go up his own, that Akiva Goldsman was deciding to just retire forever and move to Venus, then yeah, we'd have a shot. We'd have a shot at something really kind of cool. In fact, if he were allowed to go outside of the Kurtzman universe and create his own Star Trek universe, I think he could even do better than what he did with Picard season 3. So,
Yeah.
But yeah, great actors, great crew. As far as I'm concerned, the worst writing staff currently on TV. You know, that's skipping ahead. I was going to mention another writing staff, but that's skipping ahead from what we're doing today.
There's a story group I'm sure you're going to be mentioning.
Oh yeah, them too, but I wasn't thinking about them.
Oh.
There's another writer's room that has made its presence felt, and they are currently, let's just say, if you are a fan of the IP that they have been working on these last few years, wow. Anyway, so let me just hand it off to John. Let's see what your number 5 is, my friend.
My number 5 is the collapse of the Diamond Comics distributors. And because Diamond Comics, they were for a long time the sole distributor of comics to comic book shops.
Yeah.
And some of the tactics that they did, I don't see how so many mom and pop stores stayed in business in the first place.
Yeah.
Because there's just a crap ton of bad comics that they forced them to take. Well, with COVID, unfortunately, we saw a lot of mom and pop shops die. And those that we still have now don't get their comic. They get their comics from multiple distributors because Diamond Comics is no more as far as distribution chains, or at least they don't have complete control over it like they used to.
Yeah.
So, and I think that's actually it hasn't made the comics industry better because they've gotten progressively worse, but that has nothing to do with how the stores get their comics.
Yeah.
That has to do with comics that they can't sell because they're such crap. Like a lot of what's coming out of Marvel and DC.
Tell me how you really feel, John.
Well, I'd say, you can't. I mean, Marvel was the company that was going to put out the new Warriors with Snowflake and Safe Space and what are those? I forgot what all their names were. The guy
Springtime.
Yeah, who's got his powers from internet gas.
Yeah.
And the hefty girl with the magic backpack. Trailblazer, yeah. I'm surprised you know all these, Martine.
Oh, how could I forget? Isn't like watching that guy saying that he was intimidated, the creator saying he was intimidated by the characters on other comic covers.
Yeah.
Intimidated by a drawing.
Wow. Just
yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, that's Marvel. Let's not forget DC gave us gay Superman.
Yep. Followed by
Gay Robin.
Followed by, yep.
Actually, DC went, let's gay all the things, and that's what they did. Instead of giving LGBT people their own characters that
like
they
North
can root
Star?
for. Yeah, like North Star, a Marvel character that's
Doesn't get used.
Yeah, and it's been gay forever.
Since the very beginning.
Yeah.
No need to change or update or do anything. And surprisingly, Marvel just for some reason refuses to use that character. I don't know why. I don't know what.
I don't know either.
That character.
They even had the first gay wedding in comics.
Yep.
Marvel did.
Of course, you wouldn't know that. You wouldn't know that from the way Marvel acts sometimes.
No. So I guess the whole story of the collapse of Diamond Comics distributor could be summed up as the collapse of the whole comics industry as a whole. Not just Diamond Comics, that's the distributor, but if DC and Marvel wouldn't be putting out junk, then they wouldn't be worrying about this stuff. And a lot of people have gone off of floppies, and they're just strictly in trades and graphic novels now.
Wow. Oh, Cavatino, Cavalryman Che. Hey. Has a message for John. Oh man.
Yeah. They made him gay too. Marvel wasn't afraid to gay all the things too, but
actually, I think they were trying to. I think they were responding to the gay Green Lantern thing, if I remember correctly. I think they did Green Lantern first. Marvel came back with Bobby Drake, and then it just sort of been like a tit for tat thing over time. And I think DC ultimately won that one. So
yeah. When you take your flagship character, get rid of him, replace him with his son, and then make him gay. That's definitely a power move there.
They didn't just make his son gay, but they went ahead and they took Superman, his dad, and they did stuff to him.
Oh yeah, I had put that out of my mind, but thank you for reminding me, because and that's not a real thank you. That's a damn you.
I'm sorry. It's just that if you're gonna put it out there, just
yeah, they gimped Superman,
and then they sort of intimated that the Dark Knight detective himself wasn't above doing what he had to do in order to accomplish things.
Yeah.
Yep.
I remember that. I say, no. He's not that way. He pretended to be that way. It doesn't make it any better,
No. Yeah, but anyway, so that's my number 5.
That is bad, but let's not forget. I'm gonna leave you this one final thing.
Oh, Kitty Bear. That is a powerful statement, Kitty Bear.
I'll leave you with this one final thing. The romantic triangle of Jean Grey, Cyclops, and Wolverine.
Yeah.
You two are enjoying this, right?
No, I'm not.
You are enjoying the torture that you're inflicting upon me.
Just saying. That's what Marvel did. I mean, it wasn't bad enough that they had Captain America be a Hydra agent. But
we don't even mention that. That's what actually stopped me from ever buying a Marvel comic again. Is what he did with Captain America, my favorite Marvel character. Yeah, let's take everything he stands for, throw it out the window, and make him a Nazi.
But I remember that was some kind of a ruse, that he was a double agent, triple agent,
No,
in fact.
they
No,
they later come out it's because of
Internet
cosmic
gas?
manipulation.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, that was just the save face. They just wanted to deconstruct Captain America, as if he hadn't had enough deconstruction over the last previous 5 to 6 years before that.
not to mention Nomad, because I don't know. You may or may not like that moment in Cap's life, but making him, for whatever reason, to renounce his country, that is completely anti-Cap.
Yep, it is.
Wow. Yeah, I remember when that story hit, and I couldn't. I thought it was. I really did that at the time. I thought it was a joke. I thought it was an elaborate prank, and when I found out it was real,
Yeah, but Nomad is an easier pill to swallow than Nazi Cap. Just saying. You know, you could see how someone could get fed up and, you know, walk away, but yeah, to completely do a complete 180. That's just too much. But
that yeah. Yeah.
So morphed a little more than what I had put down, but it's still on the same ballpark, so.
Okay. Well, I think it's time for my number 4. And my number 4 is the complete and utter collapse of Joss Whedon.
Yeah, I thought about putting that on there.
You know what? I could have, you know, put the whole Ezra Miller thing up there. That would have been one thing. Could have even talked about how one particular former leading man was constantly thinking about eating his co-stars. But, you know, there's just something about, you know what? No, let me put it out there. For a long, long time, Joss Whedon really was the unofficial king of the nerds.
Yeah.
Okay, I mean, seriously, to this day, people still quote Buffy, the Vampire Slayer, or any one of a number of characters related to the Buffyverse or Firefly or whatever.
Johnny, let's be bad guys.
He and his writing staff. He first of all, he knew how to put together a writing staff, and I'm telling you right now, Disney, Joss Whedon has pretty much gone radio silent for a long time.
Yeah.
If you wanted to either dial back Kevin Feige a bit or put someone else in charge, I say let Joss Whedon have a shot at just trying to revive the MCU. I think he could do it. Cappuccino Cavalryman Che says Joss Whedon has made things difficult for Elijah Dushku after True Calling in Dallas. Yes, that is true. That is true.
How so?
He has a lot to, he has a lot to answer for. And that last interview he gave where he was just defiant. It's like, dude, I mean, they got you. They got you, man.
Take
There's
the L,
no
go
room.
hide for a while, and come
Yeah,
back later
just-
because everybody gets a redemption.
I mean, you didn't look. What he did was wrong,
Oh yeah,
but he didn't kill anybody. It wasn't like it was a whole bunch of. It wasn't like he went after anybody because of their sex, their race, or their sexual identity.
yeah,
But I think the biggest problem is that he couldn't take the L. He couldn't take responsibility. And really could turn the MCU around. He has the capabilities. Look, his run on X-Men was amazing. And if we're headed into that, I would rather be seeing Joss Whedon's X-Men brought to life than trying to cobble together X-Men with all the people that have made all the banner decisions since the end of Endgame. Because I'm telling you right now, this group, they got nothing going on that I really, really am interested to see. They could show me nothing that's going to excite me the way I was for phases 1 through 3.
yep.
But if they were to announce tomorrow, Bob Iger, that Joss Whedon was being put in charge of the MCU, not in charge of Marvel, the MCU. That way Kevin Feige doesn't have to get fired. He can just run the rest of Marvel and let Joss Whedon take over. I'm telling you, tomorrow, fans would get excited. Think of what he could do, especially if he were going to cast the X-Men, the Fantastic Four, and recast all of the major characters.
Yeah.
Iron Man, Captain America. I mean, really recast the Avengers.
Yeah, they.
Just saying.
I mean, it means rebooting the MCU, but
And,
how many times do they do that in the comics?
Yeah. I mean, looking at everything right now and how much money they've not brought in, I say it's about time.
Yeah.
That's the tricky thing about the internet. Anybody here could Google phase 4, 5, and 6 plan as announced by the MCU or Marvel Studios and Kevin Feige 3-4 years ago. And I will tell you, when you look at it, you're going to notice they have not been following that plan too closely.
Nope.
Several things have been changed. And yeah, I really do think that Joss Whedon could get his redemption by reviving the MCU.
Yeah, but nobody wants to touch Joss Whedon with a 10-foot pole. So
I'm telling you right now, that will change. That will, again, you have two people to pick from. Ezra Miller, Joss Whedon. Who would you rather work for? You got to work
Joss
for one or
Whedon.
the other.
Joss Whedon.
You can either work for Joss Whedon or you can work with Ezra Miller. Joss Whedon, as far as we know, wasn't grooming kids. He wasn't hitting pregnant women.
Nope.
He may have had some harsh words to say. He may have even gotten physical with at least one of the male actors. Which, again, to this day, I mean, that's a hard one for me to
Yeah.
picture James Marsters being backed up against a wall and threatened.
Yeah.
And again, I'm not an actor, and I think I'm slightly taller than James, so I don't think he would have tried anything. I don't think Whedon would have tried anything with me because I would have knocked him the F out. But I just think that given some of the strangeness that we've seen, I mean, it's not like Joss Whedon has talked to people about, hey, I wonder what Elijah Dushku tastes like. You know, I wonder if I ate her. You know, he didn't do anything like that.
Yeah.
You know, it's just, I'm just saying, it's
That's so many shades of wrong that there's no actual shade for it.
yeah, when you start like thinking out loud what it would be like to eat people,
Yeah.
people have a reason to get a little weirded out.
Yeah.
And in light of all of that, yeah, Joss Whedon still has a career.
Yeah.
Comparatively speaking, you know, and again, I'm not saying what he did was right. You know, as an adult, especially as Nerdrotic likes to say, as an adult that likes to
Yep. Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, you keep dropping.
Oh, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
An adult.
I'm just saying that again, it's a guy that made a lot of very, very bad decisions that ended his marriage and caused an uncomfortable work environment. He never killed anybody. He never attempted to eat anybody. So
He wasn't around he wasn't running around choke slamming fans.
Or pregnant women.
Yeah.
I'm just saying there's
a scale you've got to judge these on.
Yeah. You know, he has, look, I am not going to sit here and say that he hasn't suffered. And again, after that final interview, he kind of deserved what he got. You know, you can see things differently, but in light of everything, he was been accused of, to come off defiant, that was not a good idea. You know, and he's lost a lot. He even lost a television series.
Yeah.
You know, Warner Brothers canceled The Nevers, which is as much a punishment to the people that were a fan of the show as it was to him. You know,
I was never a fan of The Nevers, but that's just me.
Yeah, look, I just think that I think the MCU could definitely benefit from having Joss Whedon lead it.
Yeah.
And he could do it for the same amount of time that he did it for phases 1 and 2. You know, if you let him take over the MCU for 2 years, oh man. And it makes more sense.
Yeah.
You know, if they were to announce that they decided, just for the sake of discussion, if they were to announce tomorrow that they were canceling and scrapping the Marvels, and that Joss Whedon was going to write Captain Marvel 2, I might be a little excited for that. If they were to announce that Whedon was going to recast the role, I'd be beyond excited for that.
Yeah. That was not a good casting choice.
Yeah.
And that was
I
really
think-
the first major mistake that Marvel made.
Well, major mistake. Okay, yes, I'll go
Yeah.
with that one. Major mistake.
Yeah.
Uh,
They made a bunch of little ones, but I mean, casting her and then giving her movie before they gave one to Black Widow.
oh, jeez.
Yeah.
Oh, don't get me started on that one. How? You know what? I will say this even. I don't think she'll do it, but I think you'd have a better shot at getting Scarlett Johansson back if you had a Black Widow movie that Joss Whedon wrote.
Yeah.
In
'Cause, I mean,
fact,
look what he did with Alias. No, that was J.J.
In
Abrams. Never mind.
that was J.J. Abrams, but I
Yeah,
think Joss
brain
Whedon
fart.
could do it better.
Yeah.
But I know that deep down, John would love to see a movie about Budapest. Who
Yep.
better than Joss Whedon?
Yeah. I want to freaking find out what happened in Budapest. Come on, you've just been teasing it for 5 freaking years.
I'm just saying. I think ultimately that would be something that a lot of people out there who have given up on the MCU would probably re-up tomorrow. I mean, look, I'm not saying people wouldn't complain. There'd definitely be people out there complaining. There'd definitely be people out there wanting to put Joss Whedon through a struggle session. But my thing is, I think he's paid enough. I would give him, I'd let him prove himself on one project. I'd let him pick whatever he wanted and put money towards that and make it. Just shoot it.
Yeah.
You know, if we're going to say goodbye to Sam Jackson in the MCU, let Joss Whedon write and direct that, because Secret Invasion was that was worse than anything I could have stepped in.
Yeah, it's officially the worst rated series on D+.
And that's saying a lot. That is saying a lot.
Not just Marvel, D+ series. That includes Star Wars too, which means the book of Boba Fett, yeah, so
Nobi.
yeah, Can't Nobi. Guy that can't walk around a freaking barrier.
Oh, you gotta let that one go, John. You gotta let that one go, man. But yeah. So I'll just wrap that up by just saying this. Everybody deserves an opportunity to redeem themselves. And again, I'm not sitting here, as I've been saying, I'm not sitting here saying that what any of the stuff he's been accused of is right. Okay? I mean, you or I do even half the things this guy's been accused of, I know my life would be jacked up. So,
Yeah.
Boosh McFadden, welcome to the fun.
Hey, Boosh.
But I'm just saying that there has to at least be an opportunity and a road to redemption. Because if we can't... Hello?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We can still hear you.
Oh, okay. My monitor went down for a moment.
Oh.
Oh.
If we can't do that, then yeah, this is oh man, no, it's you got to at least do that, and I think there has to be one for even someone like Joss Whedon, you know, someone who's an advocate for women and for really for LGBTQ issues for as long as he's been. There has to be a way back.
Yeah.
Has to be. And the MCU could really use the help right now.
Yeah.
So
And
anyway, that's mine. Oh, go ahead.
unplanned, completely unplanned. This dovetails perfectly into mine. Because my number 4 is The Rise and Fall of Kevin Feige.
Oh! Uh-oh. Okay, John. I'm going to sit back and relax. You got to bring this one, man. Let's do this one.
Because you remember 5 years ago, Kevin Feige was, MCU, we had Endgame, we had Infinity War, we had, we had the culmination of 10 years and 3 phases. And then Kevin Feige just kind of
S the bed?
Yeah, he pulled an Amber Heard.
Oh, jeez.
Who I almost put on my list, the whole Johnny Depp Amber Heard thing, but I didn't put that there. Because I mean, if you look at what's been done so far, it's like he's shown that it was maybe other people that were the architects behind the first 3 phases and not him. I think Jon Favreau had a lot to do with the first 3 phases than more, as far as setting the direction and the tone. And the very first non-Sony project out the gate, wasn't it Shang-Chi? Or was it... because it got a little wonky about when things came out. Because, I mean, it didn't help that COVID happened.
Yeah. I think mine might be a little different than yours. As far as I'm concerned, everything really went bad with Black Widow. Because in light of everything, and again, I think it's easier to see what I'm saying now than it was back when I was saying it when the movie was coming out. Which is, how do you justify spending that kind of money, telling that kind of story for a character that didn't really need that kind of movie made? I mean,
that's it's as you've stated before. We both agree that it should have been like Jason Bourne or John Wick.
Yeah,
you could have shot it for $50-60 million and had a really good movie. It should have given us Budapest.
I'm beginning to notice some kind of pattern here. I may be wrong.
Yeah, and you're right. Black Widow was the first one out the gate for Phase 4. Because I forgot that they made Far From Home part of the end of Phase 3. Although really it should have been the start of Phase 4. But
even if it had, it would have just been, hey, we're up here, and then we do a big nosedive, and it never would have.
Oh yeah.
That.
Yeah, because looking at this,
hold our beer.
Yeah, take out Spider-Man: No Way Home, which is the bright spot in Phase 4, and that wasn't even made by, even though Feige was a producer on it. That was all Sony. They had some input, and they only ponied up 25% because that was under the New Deal, I think.
Well, I mean, that's what Disney got. Disney got 25%. I think the way that it worked is that Kevin Feige and Marvel Studios made the movie, but it was, since Sony owned the distribution rights to the character, it was automatically a Sony movie. But Kevin Feige and Marvel Studios actually were the ones that shot the film, because that movie was actually made using all of the studio stuff and equipment and everything else that they use for all the other MCU movies in Atlanta. So it was just shot. It was shot by. Yeah, it was shot by Marvel Studios.
Yeah,
That's all.
I don't see how if they were that because obviously Marvel Studios wasn't in charge because it would have been like the rest because it was the same people that did the rest of Phase 4.
Yep.
You know, but and like I said, except for Spider-Man No Way Home, and I guess the brightest part of the MCU that was actually produced by and that's part of their that doesn't include Sony was probably Doctor Strange, and that's not saying much.
Gosh.
Because I mean we had Black Widow, then we had Shang-Chi, then we had the Eternals, then we got Spider-Man No Way Home, which you started thinking, well, maybe they're turning the ship around. And Doctor Strange comes out, and you're like, it's Sam Raimi, and Sam Raimi couldn't even bring it home. I mean, he did a lot, but you could tell that there was a lot of interference. Then we got Thor: Love and Thunder, and then Black Panther: Wakanda Forever, which closed out Phase 4
in a hurry.
Yeah,
I don't think that was the original plan for closing it out. I think they had a few more films in Phase 4, and Kevin Feige just realized, oh no, I S'd the bed.
So he's like, "Oh, let me go over here and S in the corner,"
because
that's what Phase 5 has been.
Oh wow, John, tell us how you really feel, man.
Wow. Because I mean, look at what we've gotten for Phase 5. Phase 5 so far, we got Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, which they completely threw out the working Ant-Man formula just so they can introduce Kang. And look how that's going.
Kang, you mean that breakfast drink?
Yeah, Kang. Yeah. Because we saw what happens when they don't fully vet their talent. We had Guardians 3, but even that wasn't. That was all James Gunn. Let's be real. That was purely James Gunn, and it wasn't as good as it could have been. I mean, it was fine, but then we get coming up the Marvels, and we don't need to know how bad that's going to be to talk about the Marvels.
Wow.
Then we're supposed to get Deadpool, barring any delays and stuff that may happen because of the strikes, which we'll talk about tomorrow on TGIF.
Yeah.
But after and Deadpool, that's primarily Sean Levy and Ryan Reynolds doing that. I don't know how much Feige's going to have involvement in that. But then we come back to I don't know. I haven't even bothered to watch the trailer. I'm like, that's how I feel about that.
I've seen the trailer.
From what I've seen of like the scenes I have seen, isn't he kind of like a Q type character or something, or scientist or something?
Something like that.
Yeah, but
he's kind of like their version of the Answer Man.
Okay, but then we're supposed to get Brave New World, or yeah, it used to be New World Order. They changed the name. It's like, hey, wait, New World Order has a bad connotation. Let's use Brave New World. Have you not read the book? Then we're supposed to get Marvel's answer to the Suicide Squad to Thunderbolts. And then Phase 5 is supposed to end with Blade. Yeah.
Someday it'll end with Blade.
Yeah. Well, right now it's scheduled for February 2025.
Yeah, we'll see.
But yeah, just looking at everything that's happened for Phase 4 and Phase 5, and we've talked about it, and I think you're right that a big part of it is Kevin Feige's just got his fingers in too much stuff. Mm-hmm. Instead of focusing just on the MCU, he's got the comic books, he's got the TV, he's that, and see that's something else entirely, because the one good MCU series they've done lately, I think, was an accident, and that was Ms. Marvel, and that didn't get near the ratings it should have.
I'm telling you right now that Marvel was way better when it was on Netflix.
Oh yeah. Just seeing what they did to Daredevil and She-Hulk just tells me that the Born Again series is going to be crap.
The She-Hulk series alone, in my opinion, give me another season of Iron Fist.
Yeah, that would, and that's would have liked another season of Daredevils, but we didn't get that either.
I am just, you had people in charge that knew what they were doing, and you've gotten rid of
Defender.
them.
Yeah.
You've gotten rid of those people, and then you've instituted more and others, where unlike what you had before, with the Netflix shows and with a lot of your early stuff, you don't have, no fans will be hired to actually write any of this stuff. I'm seriously questioning a lot of their life choices at that point.
Yeah.
What every fan, I don't care if you are a DC, Image, Marvel, Gold Key, I don't care if you're a fan of Harry Potter, Lord of the Rings, any book, you name it. How can you actually get fans excited if you go out of your way to hire people who are not fans of the material?
Freaking Nate Moore.
It's all. It's not just Nate Moore, though. Nate Moore wasn't talking about. Yeah, Nate Moore wasn't saying that it was his policy. What he said in that article is the policy of Marvel Studios, meaning it comes straight from the top. It is the policy of Marvel Studios as a whole.
Yep.
And I have to ask, if you're going to make a movie, as an example, if you're going to make a movie about World War II, but you've decided not to hire anyone behind the scenes of the film, was.
Yeah.
What do you think the chances are that film's going to be jacked up?
Pretty good. As in almost guaranteed.
Yeah. You can't. You just can't. Can't. Again, I'm saying you can do anything you want. I mean, it's Disney's money. It's a corporation's money. But ultimately, more so than even getting it right, they just want to make back what they've spent, and they want to make a little profit. If you want to guarantee that happening, you need to at least do a little bit of research.
Yeah.
Again, nobody's asking that you be the ultimate fan of the material. Okay, Star Trek II: The Wrath of Khan is an example of someone who was not that familiar with the material, who actually, oh, I don't know, surprise, surprise, actually watched episodes and became a fan of the material.
The least they could do is look at the wiki.
Be done if you're willing to put in the time. And there's just way too many people right now in Hollywood that just don't think they got the time. Are you kidding me? 1980, 81, when they would have had to have been doing all the work leading up to Star Trek II: The Wrath of Khan. In order to do all that research, someone had to actually watch episodes. More than likely on reel-to-reel, on film, on celluloid, and not even videotape. So, oh man.
Yeah, like I said, they could have at least looked at the wiki. They would at least known what's going on, kind of. If they can't be bothered to read the comics themselves.
Yep. Hey, good point, Triple C. Gavatino, Cavalryman Shay. Both DC and Marvel have handbooks. They have comics. They have all kinds of stuff that anybody just, oh man. You can go look this stuff up real easy.
Oh, yeah.
But it also lets me know that we dodged a bullet and not getting that, after what happened with the Eternals, and not getting the New Gods movie from Warner Brothers the way they were originally planning on.
Yeah. Because
look, personally, I think Ava DuVernay is a talented filmmaker, but I don't think she would have given us. I don't think she would have given us the New Gods from the comics. No. I think we would have gotten something infinitely along the lines of what we got for Eternals.
Yeah. Eternals is probably the worst of Phase 4.
I have it tied.
With what?
Shang-Chi.
Okay. See, there's stuff I like in Shang-Chi that I
get it. I get it. But you know what? As a Marvel Comics fan,
oh yeah,
I can't
completely.
I cannot justify the changes they made to that character because it's, again, if anybody here has ever seen the show on Netflix, Warrior, or has ever seen the 70s version of that called Kung Fu, that's pretty much what that is. There's no Shang-Chi does not need to wear a superhero suit. It's the same stupid thinking that you had with Black Widow. She's a secret freaking agent. You don't need to have her doing superhero stunts, falling from great heights and surviving. You don't need that. That's the part that the MCU is completely and utterly messed up. Both DC and Marvel have characters that have no superpowers, but they are very capable characters. Batman isn't the only one.
Nope.
And a lot of them don't even wear uniforms. Some of them just do what they got to do. But you wouldn't know that. Sorry. That really ticks me off as a comic book fan. And Shang-Chi is just the worst of the worst. It is the ultimate Hollywoodification of taking a character and just doing something the exact opposite of what that character is.
That's called subverting your expectations.
Yeah.
Shang-Chi really is the last Jediification of that character. You have really just turned that character inside out to do what they did.
Yeah, because
You know.
and that's not even getting into what they did with Mandarin.
Oh, jeez.
They
don't
took an
go there.
iconic Iron Man villain and turned him into a 2-bit martial arts villain with special bracelets. Instead of having these really cool alien rings that each had a different power, we just got these bracelets that fly around and you can hit people with.
I'm not saying that everything done outside of the MCU was perfect, but I will say this. What Netflix did and the first 2 seasons of the FX series Legion are way better than every single MCU Disney Plus show they've ever made.
Hell, you can throw Gifted in that. And
Even
the first season of season of Cloak and Dagger.
Oh, geez, Gifted was amazing. Gifted was way better than it had any right to be. Nobody, including me, was expecting anything from that show. And the fact that you even got something that good. Oh, my goodness. And somebody's ego was bruised and decided to fire everybody that gave us all that stuff.
Yep.
So that they could be brought into the MCU. Way to go, champs.
So yeah, so that's my number 4. It's the rise and fall of Kevin Feige.
See, now I'm
now,
ticked off.
Will there be a rise? I don't know. But for now, it's rise and fall.
Good one. It's a really good one. Okay. Well, for mine, it'll be Justice League. What happened? You know, 3 weeks after Justice League came out.
Okay, I was getting up to do something. My number 3 is the Snyder Cut.
Oh no! 2 different things. Still 2 different things. It leads into what you're going to talk about. As I was saying, about 3 weeks after the release of Justice League, or as we came to call it, Justice League, it was an article from Forbes that pretty much shed light on what happened. Forbes was the first one that had the guts to actually go after what had actually happened with that film and how it was made and what led up to that film getting made. I should say they were the first of the mainstream media to do that because, again, Midnight's Edge, Nerdrotic, and others, they went hard at that. You know, as soon as that movie came out, they were on it. But if I remember correctly, Forbes was the first one of the mainstream media to come out and do this in-depth article that broke down exactly what happened with that film. So that the average person out there can actually see what happened. it was also how many found out that David Ayer had not exactly been telling the truth uh, about what happened with Suicide Squad, in so much as that he had been going around saying, this is his cut, this is the cut he wanted to put out. And what that was that Warner Brothers had forced him to make changes to his movie because of what happened with Batman v Superman. But Forbes laid it all out and just broke it down. And they laid out the fact that you had Warner Brothers under Kevin Tsujihara, who, in a desperate attempt to try to match what Disney was getting from Marvel and the MCU, was completely committed to doing everything under the sun to make sure that they could get to where they wanted to go with all of this stuff. But in doing so, ultimately created the conditions that allowed Justice League to fail. The whole thing about, again, trying to do this all from memory, allegedly it went over what happened with Man of Steel. And as I'd been saying for a long time, just like what happened with the Star Trek TV cast and the stories that kind of got told over the years about William Shatner, only to find out that more than half the stories that were being told were debunked as BS. There was a lot of stuff that
So we have our dancing Das Wolf.
anyway, what had happened was you had the idea for Man of Steel 2 that both Zack Snyder and Henry Cavill had come up with being scrapped because Warner Brothers was wanting to expedite how soon they could get to their own hero group movie. Even in light of the fact that there had been a Justice League movie that was going to be released prior to the Green Lantern film. And that film was stopped. And Greg Berlanti and Mark Guggenheim, the powers that be for the Arrowverse, were the writers behind the Green Lantern film.
Yeah.
Along with Jeff Johns. But that in having them go straight into the making of Batman v Superman. Also, the conditions that Batman v Superman were filmed under, the fact that they had people on set looking over everything, changing parts of what it had been originally planned, and basically just riding roughshod over Zack Snyder, who was still able to make a really good movie that ultimately was edited down to a theatrical version that was just not good. And then in the midst of all that, once the film was released, to go to David Ayer as he was getting ready to wrap up filming on Suicide Squad, to get him to go back through and reshoot a whole lot of scenes to lighten up the movie, air quotes, and add some more laughs to it. Most people would argue that during this particular time, Warner Brothers could have very easily have just fired Zack Snyder.
Yeah.
They could have found someone else to make the movie they wanted to make. And again, let me just say, from what I've heard, rumor has it that Jeff Johns always had it in mind to try to bring in Joss Whedon. You know, he was not a fan of Zack Snyder, and he was not a fan of anything that was being done, because he was still butthurt that Warner Brothers didn't exactly go with his script for the Batman reboot movie that he had written called The Batman.
Yeah.
And so he, you know, he's kind of like that one kid that you have where the family decides to go on vacation and one child decides that they're not having it. You know, they're with you on vacation. You've gone too far. You can't turn around and drop them off at the house. So they're just giving you attitude for the entire trip. That's Jeff Johns.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it was decided that Zack Snyder was just gonna have to be the guy and go ahead and make Justice League, which he did. Again, his original idea for even Justice League had to be altered a few times to accommodate certain ideas, and eventually what you had was a film that ultimately was the ideas of Zack Snyder, his writing partner, and a few of the DC hierarchy, along with Jeff Johns, who was put in charge of all of that stuff. He was the main guy during the production of the film. Somehow, the film had made it far enough into production where it was looking more and more like it was going to be finished. And then Zack Snyder's personal issue happened, and he tried staying long enough to finish the film. That eventually became untenable. He left, and Warner Brothers used it as an opportunity to move him on and to move Joss Whedon into the director's seat, which ironically is something that, from what I heard, rumors, that he had been wanting to do all along, even though Joss Whedon had actually been working off and on that film, helping to punch up the script. Whedon took over, and again, as I said earlier, they pretty much had that film done, but decided to have Whedon stick around and just go ahead and try to rewrite parts of the movie. So basically, you have an entire film. The script is set. The stars have already pretty much done what they needed to do, and you're going to go back and try to refilm parts of it to add in more humor and to take certain storylines and change them. Aside from how long Zack Snyder's cut was, The rest of that stuff was pretty much, in my opinion, just needless. But Joss Whedon was getting paid. He did the work. And then they reached a point where it was becoming clear that they were going to need more time. And he asked Warner Brothers to give him more time rather than sticking to the hard date in November. And this is, let's see, I think that was right around May or June. And Warner Brothers decided they weren't going to give him the extra time. So he had to rush through. And this is on top of having actors who had originally should have been done and should have been off working on other projects. In the case of Ben Affleck, he had another movie, a movie that he had been wanting to make for quite a while. And then that one was to be distributed by Warner Brothers. So there was no way for him to avoid having to follow what Warner Brothers was saying. And then you have Henry Cavill, who was working on the Paramount film, Mission Impossible Fallout. And in coming back to shoot scenes, he had to grow a mustache for the Mission Impossible film, and Paramount wouldn't let him shave it off. So that created additional issues for the scenes that they had to shoot for Joss Whedon's version of Justice League. Needless to say, as Andre would say, it was a film of Frankensteinian proportions. And it was just, there was a lot of bad stuff going on behind the scenes to create that thing. Was it the worst film I've ever seen? No. But there was just a lot there. But I could also see the people who did like that film would probably also tell you that it probably would have been a lot better, easier to see if Joss Whedon had been given more time. Instead of having the film come out in November, they could have pushed it back. So Warner Brothers didn't want to do that. And the Forbes article detailed why, which is they knew that AT&T was coming in to buy everything, and they wanted to make sure that everybody, including the executives, would get their Christmas bonuses that year. Because delaying the film then would not have made it possible for them to get bonuses prior to AT&T taking over. This is what happens when you have someone. This is what happens really when you don't have someone who actually is in literal charge of everything that you're doing. When you're running a division for your superhero comics and films and TV shows.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't know what Jeff Johns really.
Yeah, it's. We've lost Keith again.
Yeah. For a moment, I thought it was my internet until you moved. Then I knew. Oh no. Yeah, man. That.
You know me. I'm
whole-
multitasking. Sorry.
Don't worry. Oh man, that whole thing with the Justice League.
Yeah.
I mean, Zack Snyder's version was vastly superior, and it didn't was a very good movie.
Well, that's my number 3. Since we've lost Keith. My number 3 is the Snyder Cut, and specifically the fact that the fans put pressure on Warner Brothers to let him not only finish the movie the way he wanted, but gave him money to finish it, to reshoot scenes and stuff. That's, as far as I know, that's unprecedented.
Yeah, it was the first, I think, because fans couldn't even save Star Trek. That was canceled, and that was it. And
Yeah.
no matter how many letters the studio received, that was it.
Well, no, we've managed to save series before. We saved. I was part of the. I sent a 5-pound bag of nuts into the studio for Jericho as part of the protest to them canceling Jericho. Well, we got another season out of it. Wasn't a very good season, but we got a season out of it. So I mean, we've done that before, but no, just the unprecedented fact that, they took a movie that had been finished and said, "Hey, we don't like this version. We want to see his version instead. So you need to put out his version." And so they kept up constant pressure on Twitter, and just constantly in the top, one of your top 10 trending topics was release the Snyder Cut for months. And they finally gave in and said, "Okay, fine, we'll release Snyder Cut. We'll give them, give them."
To be honest, I don't think it would have been finished and released if they weren't being so adamant with their streaming service, because that
played a factor. They needed something for the streaming service, but they didn't need because the final product we got was a 4-hour movie. And I don't think that's what they had in mind when they said finish Snyder Cut.
Yeah, that I don't know. I would have gone with a limited series of 4 episodes of 1 hour each.
Yeah. Well, I sat down and watched the whole thing, so I mean.
Oh no, I do. I can, but not everybody's willing to do that. I think that decision that made it hurt the potential audience.
Yeah, and just to prove that Twitter is such a small part of the fandom, they're just a vocal part, and the fans didn't show up. I mean, they did well, but it didn't do well enough for them to go, "Okay, well, let's greenlight, the next movie so we can finish this out." Now, how much of that was behind the scenes with Walter Hamada and stuff? Because Hamada didn't like Snyder at all. I think that's obvious.
Yeah, and I can see in part why changes on the characters that may or maybe not been studio mandated. Here's Kiss, but I still remember that conference in which Zack said that if your superheroes don't kill, if you believe that your superheroes don't kill, you're naive, and blah 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 blah.
Yeah.
So yeah, I can see that if you are part of DC, and when you're translating the printed work to the screen, and the person that is being given that task decides to, I'm going to essentially rewrite the personalities of the characters to suit my needs.
Yeah.
You could understand why he wasn't very liked.
Yeah, that's true. Sorry, Keith, I went ahead and jumped on.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
just went ahead and went to the Snyder Cut.
Oh, okay.
And
Fun times.
Yeah, about how that, it was really the fans that brought it about on Twitter. But then I also pointed out, well, it did fine, but apparently, it just proves that Twitter's not the real world, and it didn't have enough support for them to go ahead and say, well, here's another 250 million. Why don't you finish your vision and we'll call it a day?
They were never going to give him that. I'll tell you that much right now. Anybody that actually thinks that Warner Brothers, the way that it was prior to David Zaslav, would have given Zack Snyder more money to finish everything out, I got swampland in Alaska to sell you, because Ann Sarnoff never would have signed off on that. Toby Emmerich would have never signed off on that. They hated what was going on because they, in their minds, had what they wanted. Look, you got to understand, this is the biggest difference between the MCU and what Warner Brothers was doing with DC. First and foremost, there was no actual DC studio.
No.
Okay? Kevin Feige had control over the MCU. That was the way that worked. He was the guy who was running all of that stuff. So it was easier to have someone with a vision who was able to plot stuff out and bring in talented people to execute that vision. Now, the thing with Kevin Feige, now that we're starting to figure out, is that all the people he brought in, being a comic book fan, were all comic book fans themselves. That's the reason why phases 1 through 3 worked. Anybody that tries to tell you that it was the inherent nature of the characters, Marvel's, that's BS. That has been completely proven now with how bad phases 4 and 5 have been, and all of the Disney Plus stuff. Okay? Warner Brothers, under Kevin Tsujihara and his executives, had no intention of letting anyone be in charge. You just spent money bringing in Joss Whedon, the guy who gave the MCU the Avengers, and you wouldn't let him make the movie that probably would have helped everything. It's not like Joss Whedon was trying to take Justice League and turn it into a joke.
Yeah.
But he had to go ask permission to do that. And it's amazing to me that people think that, oh, well, except Snyder had everything he wanted. No, Snyder didn't.
No,
he never had full control at all. In fact, they hated him. As we have learned now from people in the business that we've even had on this show, they hated him. They wanted to get rid of him because they thought in their minds that the perfect person to not only direct, but to run the DC universe was Christopher Nolan. And Nolan wouldn't do it. Not because he hated comic book movies, but because those aren't the types of films he makes. He literally said to them, "Do you guys really understand what I'm doing with these movies?" Talking about, his Batman films. Really, it's just, it's what if Batman were real? That is the entire premise of all of that. If you had someone that had the means, the money, and had the same thing happen to them, minus any other heroes, nobody flying, no aliens, no nothing, how would that go down? And had Heath Ledger not died, we would have seen the ultimate conclusion to that story.
Yeah, instead we got Bane, kind of.
But I mean, that's to be expected. Again, everything he did within the context of that film fit that film, because that's the way he planned on it. And you had a lot of comic book fans that were upset because it didn't follow the comics. But that's the thing, it was never meant to.
No.
You know, in many ways, you should see the Dark Knight trilogy as a trilogy compared to almost the exact opposite. Well, not opposite, but almost parallel to how they're making the Joker movies.
Yeah, there are pocket universes.
It's all Elseworlds.
Yeah.
Yeah, these are pocket universes. And so that's the way it should be looked at. But with Zack Snyder, what you had was someone who was a comic book fan, but not just a comic book fan. And that's the added benefit with Zack Snyder. See, people expected directors to come in and just be, okay, I've read all the comics. And while the comics are great,
Okay. That was a
of who these characters were. And in having Batman, it was an amalgamation of all the versions of Batman that anybody that's, you know, has come along since 1966 would recognize. It was a way of having all those different versions of the character in one body. Okay, you got the Dark Knight Returns, but you also got Batman potentially as a character for whom you could actually see with the Batcave and Alfred and the Batcomputer and Robin. But you also had the Batman from Batman the Animated Series. And the Batman that you saw, most importantly, in the Arkham games.
Yeah.
He took inspiration from all that stuff. And he did it in a way like a guy who was never going to be able to do it again. If you had one shot at Batman and you were never going to do it again after that, what would you do?
I would do the entire Dark Knight Returns.
Maybe. But I mean, you know, his thing was, considering his age, he's probably like me and grew up with the Denny O'Neil, Neil Adams. Batman was probably his first Batman. And while Christopher Nolan didn't say too much, see, this is the only downside with Christopher Nolan. Christopher Nolan borrowed heavily from the Denny O'Neil, Neil Adams Batman.
Yeah.
He didn't exactly point that out, but he borrowed heavily from it. But here's the thing. He wasn't really a comic book reader. Those were the guys that he had writing all the scripts that were doing that. Versus Zack Snyder, who was writing the scripts with his writing partner. Again, I'm not saying Zack Snyder's better than Christopher Nolan. I'm just saying that when it came to this, you actually had someone that knew what he was doing. And he was doing it on purpose. You know, Snyder never ran those films. He was only in charge of the movies that he had.
Yeah.
He had the Joss Whedon deal that Joss Whedon had when he was working for the MCU. That's the deal he had. There's way too many people trying to act like Snyder was this big shot who was running there. He wasn't.
Nope.
He was never, ever in charge. That was the thing that you got out of the Forbes article.
Yeah.
You know, he was never, ever in charge. John is, you know, it's like saying Joss Whedon was in charge of the MCU.
No, he was just in charge of the Avengers and
anything related remotely to that. You know, he was in charge of basically taking the Avengers and setting everything up so that you could get to the Age of Ultron film. So basically, he had a hand in helping all those other filmmakers, starting with Iron Man, really starting with Iron Man 3 and Civil War and all those films. He was the one that basically helped to add flourishes. Now, he didn't actually go on the sets and started telling everybody what to do. Kevin Feige, though, being in charge of all of those movies, would tell all those filmmakers, we need to add this. That's the benefit of having someone that knows what they are doing and are helping to build something. But Warner Brothers was never going to let that happen. They're not about that.
Yeah.
They were all about controlling everything from the very beginning. The executives, look, you really want to see something? Everything that we're experiencing right now, everything that's gone wrong with Star Trek, everything that's gone wrong with Star Wars, Lucasfilm, all of it, you can see with Warner Brothers at that period.
Yeah.
Because you have a bunch of executives that think that they're filmmakers is the problem.
Well, I hate to be that guy. We've got 15 minutes to get through the last two of each one. So
okay.
So what's your number two?
Number two. Number two for me is David Zaslav.
All right. Get out of my head because that's my number two.
Oh, man. Look, David Zaslav was every year they have what they call the upfronts. Okay.
Yeah.
Television, various other things. David Zaslav, I think, was there about 2 years ago and basically got laughed out of the upfronts because he had started going off on streaming. You know, even back then he was saying, this is not a good thing to do. It's not good to put all your eggs in that one basket.
Yeah.
You know, he was preaching and trying to warn everybody in the business that this is not good. And he got proven right. But at the time, they laughed at him because he was quote unquote a nobody. You know, I mean, he had a lot of money and he had a few things here and there, but he's nobody. What does he know? You know, Bob Iger was at that time. Bob Iger was Bob Iger. You know, oh, Disney and Disney Plus and blah 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 blah. You know, time has proven that David Zaslav knew exactly what he was talking about.
Yeah. And
it's not really rocket science. Really, it's just pretty much just common sense. As a business person running a business, you can't you can't sell. If you owned another business, let's say you owned business A and business B, and then you have your main business, okay, which is business C, right?
Yeah.
Business C cannot have business A make widgets and then sell those widgets to business B and call it making profits. Because you're selling
money
it
around.
That's right. You're selling it to yourself. And what Zaslav was trying to say to everyone is like, that's technically what you're doing when you buy into all of the streaming stuff. You're not really making any money. So when Disney makes a movie, when they take it and put it on streaming, you're not making any money from that.
No.
And if you happen to have a movie that you're putting in theaters and then you put it on streaming, your own streaming service, then the only money you've made is the money that you made in the movie theaters. It used to be that you would make a movie, you put it out in the theater,
and you went to home media.
Route, if I remember. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hello?
Yeah. Yeah, you had dropped out again.
Oh. You'd have the hotels and other things, closed circuit television. You'd have it right there, and you'd make money that way. Eventually, you'd be making deals for cable and making deals for Blu-ray, DVD releases. These are all the different ways that you would make money.
Yeah.
And what was amazing to Zaslav is that people like Bob Iger and others were basically talking about leaving money on the table or not taking more money. And the one thing that we figured out is that when Kevin Tsujihara and everybody that were running Warner Brothers, these geniuses that thought that Zack Snyder and everyone else should be answering to their dreams and understanding of the DC characters, that these geniuses, when they left, had all of Warner Brothers in a massive financial hole. Zaslav kept talking about making cuts, and he got made fun of for it. A lot of magazines, a lot of Hollywood insiders and outsiders are making fun of this guy because he was going out and slashing things, firing people, trying to find $3 billion. I challenge anybody to Google all of that stuff and look at all his. He kept bringing it up. 3 billion, 3 billion, 3 billion. Turns out he was $4 billion off.
Yeah.
Warner Brothers was $7 billion in debt. And as of earlier this year, after the end of the first fiscal quarter, Zaslav was able to report that Warner Brothers was in the black again, up $300 million.
Yeah, that's pretty impressive.
In fact, they had their financial report again today. And compared to Disney, which is still what? Disney, I think, is $13 billion in the hole. I think that's closer to 15 to 16 billion, I should say.
And that's not even count what they owe, what they're going to have to pay at the first of the year with for Hulu.
No. 13 billion due to operating expenses and everything else. That's not about Hulu at all. They are in the red. They owe a lot of money. And it is now August. So as of January 1st, they can pay a minimum of $9 billion to put up for Hulu. You got to somehow come up with $13 billion between now and January 1st and still come up with an additional $9 billion to pay for Hulu. See?
That's $22 billion they need to come up with.
That's right. That's the reason why everything is going to pot right now and why Bob Iger looks like death warmed over, it seems like, half the time. They are in serious financial trouble. And why Bob Iger has been talking, quote unquote, crazy talk about selling ABC, and they need cash quick. Real quick, because of the amount of money that they have. I think it was Mexican Iron Man who did the figures that the amount of money that they reported this last time only gave them enough money, cash on hand, to run everything for 6 weeks.
Yeah.
David Zaslav's the man because he's the one that kicked all this off and told everybody that you guys are idiots. You cannot run a business the way that you guys have been running it these recent years. You cannot be this stupid.
Yeah, well, they thought COVID was going to be the new normal.
Some of it was about COVID. Some of it was also about, look, long before COVID, Bob Iger had been trying to plan out this whole thing with Disney Plus because it was the natural evolution from what they had done with the Disney Channel and going to cable. You know,
Yeah.
that whole thing of how Disney made the transition to cable was all about the fact that they realized that the competition was starting to get steep and was starting to get tough. To continue to function where they were dependent on making money through the release of VHS and DVDs and syndication. And syndication was really the big one right there because Steven Spielberg had brought Warner Brothers Animation back to life. Warner Brothers Animation had been closed for years. He brought them back to life and chased Disney out of syndication.
Yep.
Disney ran syndication for years in the early 90s. Kids could come home, watch whatever they wanted. Darkwing Duck, Tailspin, DuckTales. There's a reason why eventually all that stuff wound up behind for you to have to pay for it. And that's because Warner Brothers Animation, led by Steven Spielberg, came out with Tiny Toons Adventures, Batman the Animated Series, Freakazoid. I mean, they took Disney to the woodshed because Disney wasn't expecting somebody else to come out and compete, let alone beat them. And make no mistake, Warner Brothers Animation was beating them. So the only thing they could do was start their own cable channel, which is what they did. And that's just the natural evolution then going to Disney Plus of what they ultimately would have to do. You know, the whole thing with, hey, we got our own shows that we can show, you know, the Mickey Mouse Club, and we can show Spin and Marty, and we can do all of these things. And nobody can tell us what to do, and you don't have to worry about ratings. You don't have to worry about paying. You don't have to worry about trying to get somebody to buy programs in syndication. Now they're paying you for it.
Yeah.
And then you have the extra added advantage of having Disney Radio so that you can start creating your own stars and kind of sort of compete against MTV. So, yeah. Anyway, sorry.
Oh, that's fine. No, it's you covered everything I wanted to cover and then some. So that leaves number one.
Okay, number one. Look, for me, number one, it took me a while to come up with what I would do for the number one. And looking back over 5 years, number one for me was really really the rise of alternative news. What we're doing right now. Shows like Neurotic and also you know, when you look at Midnight's Edge, which was really the beginning for me, and the work that they were able to do, Andre and Tom, those guys, I've said it before and I'll say it again, they are the freaking 60 Minutes of what we do. You know, along with WDW Pro, my man Valiant Renegade, everybody.
Yeah.
Doomcock, Nerdrotic, they have truly stepped up and done things that the mainstream press or the traditional people just couldn't get done. And they've done it in a very entertaining way. And it's affected everything we've seen how effective they've become. You know, everything's grown so much that when the phony G4 version came out, tried to revive it in a very greedy way, not in an honest way, it was defeated soundly.
Oh yeah.
And in order to do this, you've got to be genuine. You can't pretend. And that was the real problem with G4. The G4 revival was that nobody on there was truly genuine. You know, it was almost like a reality show. And meanwhile, you could tune into, you know, the latest and greatest of what Valiant Renegade had to say and actually learn something. Valuable information. Midnight's Edge, as they break down, you know, the latest and greatest from Star Trek, but also in talking about things like ownership. Any episode over the last 5 years from any of those shows and just play it now, and you will understand still so much more than what everybody was hearing from traditional media sources back then. You know, it's the reason why WDW Pro has blown up, why Paul Chato is able to do what he does.
Yeah.
You know, and of course, my other twin brother, Robert Meyer Burnett. You know, Robert Meyer Burnett is just someone who he has all of the qualifications. This guy is so legit. And yet, you know, there are people that they have no idea. They want to listen to some other person talk about X, Y, and Z. You're better off listening to R&B than you are some schlub of a dude who's just talking, you know, like, say, me. So R&B is R&B is the truth. And it's the reason why then you can have the Rippaverse.
Yep.
And the success that, oh man, I mean, that's just amazing. I'm so happy for everyone. Ethan Van Sciver, all those guys. They deserve what they've gotten. They deserve all of that because they worked for it. It wasn't given to them. And they earn their fans the old-fashioned way.
Yeah, I almost included Rippa in the Iron Age as one of mine, but
all of them. I look up to all those guys and Mexican Iron Man. You know, Mexican Iron Man, just man.
Yeah.
Anyway, what's your number one, man?
My number one is Elon buying Twitter.
Oh. Wow.
That was
well,
not
I mean,
small feat.
No, that was a lot of money, but it took someone like Elon to actually pull it off.
Yeah.
And it completely changed how discourse happens in this country. Although it did cause a lot of issues, and it caused threads to show up, but that's already a failure because they're talking like nobody's using it anymore. So, because they've all gone back to Twitter or X. See, I think that's a mistake he's made is rebranding it, but I understand why he wants to rebrand it. Just,
wow.
I don't think a single letter is the way to go. But yeah, I think but that had probably the biggest impact of anything in the geek sphere because it touches not only the geek sphere, but it goes beyond it, touches politics, touches life, touches entertainment, touches everything.
You're right.
Yep.
That's good. Good one there.
So yeah, that's my number one. So
Wow. Let me at least also officially say that I also look up to the salty nerds. Those guys are fun.
yeah,
You know, I look up to everybody. Seriously, I do. You know, Lorena Creole, Fat Steven. Fat Steven's truly a giant in all of this. He's just a fun guy. And you know, I'm lucky enough to work with Gary, who's just been amazing, and of course Martin and John, because you guys have become superstars, whether you want to admit it or not. You guys are superstars.
I don't know about all that, but
I do. Trust me. You guys are superstars. So it's my absolute just privilege to be able to come in and work with you guys and make you laugh, and you guys make me laugh, and you guys just, you know, be who you are. You guys are exciting and fun. So thank you.
thank you.
And looking at the time, oh man.
Yeah, we're 6
I think-
over.
Yeah, we're 6 over. So let me just say, look, on behalf of these incredible giants of YouTube, John and Martin, I'm Keith. Thank you for joining me for morning coffee with me. Have a better day.
Goodbye. See you tomorrow.
Have a good one.